How to land a lucrative, high-paying remote sales role in the AI industry. That is all we are going to be talking about in today's video. I want to set you up for success. I want to set you up to be able to make a 10 to 40,000 per month remote income by selling for an AI business. But in order to get there, you're going to need to land a role first, okay? And that's where most people get stuck. You know, I typically tend to find that from people that watch my content, or maybe they book a call with us, or they become clients of ours, most people can see from a logical perspective why this would work. In the sense of, yes, you know, AI is booming. There's so much money and so much demand just flowing into this space, and therefore it creates a great opportunity for salespeople. That is absolutely true. But if you don't know how to land a role, if you don't have the network, the connections, the system, the process, then it's just not going to end too well, and therefore you won't get to that 10 to 40,000 a month income, okay? First step is landing a great role, okay? And ultimately, because we've placed so many people, so many clients into remote sales roles in the AI space with a plus 90% placement success rate, as well as an average timeline of 2 to 8 weeks from the day of a client joining to the day of them onboarding into a role, 2 to 8 weeks. It's fair to say, ultimately, we've learned a thing or two about how to land roles in the AI space. And I've essentially taken my knowledge, my experience, my data, and I've distilled this down into 3 core principles that you can leverage, that you can action immediately straight after this call. So with that being said, I'm going to stop rambling. Let's dive into the video. So 3 core principles. Number 1 is volume. So important. It comes at the top of the list for a reason. Now, I want you to imagine 2 parallel versions of yourself, right? Okay. In one version of yourself, one in this, multiverse of parallel reality, whatever you want to call it, in one version of yourself, you get in front of 5 AI companies per week. And that means that the hiring decision maker of 5 different companies per week becomes aware that you exist, becomes aware of what you offer. Okay, 5 companies per week. Now imagine another parallel version of yourself but in this parallel version of yourself, you get in front of 50 AI companies per week. 50 hiring decision makers every single week become aware that you exist and what you offer. Now, which version of yourself is going to get quicker, better results? Who's going to land a role quicker? Who's going to land a higher quality role quicker? Basic logic. Of course, the version of yourself that gets in front of 50 companies per week. Super important, guys. Volume, okay? Now, how does that actually look in practice? And let's get a little bit specific, though. So I recommend that really you want to be getting in front of a bare minimum. If you really do want to do this, if you really do want to land a remote sales role in the AI space, you need to get in front of 25 companies and 25 hiring decision makers per week, minimum. That is, again, bare minimum, okay? Now, this is something I say to my clients as well. Listen, 25 bare minimum. Now, obviously, working with us, they get access to our direct network, and it's a done-for-you recruitment system where we do their application. So it's very easy for clients, of course. But for yourselves, by any means necessary, you need to get in front of 25 companies per week. 25 companies need to become aware that you exist. That breaks down to, if you do a 5-day working week of getting out in front of companies, applying, etc., that works out to 5 per day, okay? It's really not the end of the world, you know? The question is, will you put that time in? Are you willing to put that time in order to, again, make that vision that you've got a reality, a 10 to 40,000 a month income? Now, again, to reiterate though, guys, that is bare minimum, okay? I much prefer a better scenario of getting in front of 50 companies per week. 50 companies become aware that you exist and what you offer. You break that down to a 5-day working week, that's 10 per day. Again, even that is not time consuming. Now, if you really do want to go psycho and go crazy with it, 100 per week, breaks down to 20 per day. Now, okay, here's an interesting thing. When I was closing for other companies, obviously I've got my own business now, but when I was closing for other companies and I was in between roles, I would set this benchmark in my head that I would get in front of 40 companies per day, 200 per week, okay? So when I say 100, I'm like, I'm being conservative. I don't think that's a hard benchmark to hit. Now, you know, the interesting thing, and I say this again to clients, is that, okay, so imagine me, closing for other companies, in between roles, 40 companies I'm getting in front of per day. That's across email, LinkedIn, applications, etc. We'll go through a bit more details on that in just a second. But, okay, now 40 per day, you could say, well, that's very time consuming. That's going to take a long time. Yes, it does, okay? Unless, I didn't have access to what, my company's now built. I didn't have access to a direct network, inbound offers, and all of that kind of stuff done for you recruitment systems. I didn't have access to that. I was doing it the old school way, okay? So it was very, very time consuming. But here's the thing. This is really key. If you do that kind of volume, then it will actually save you time in the long run. And you know why? Because you'll land a role a lot quicker. Again, imagine two parallel versions of yourself. One parallel version gets in front of 100 companies per week, and the other version of yourself gets in front of 5 companies per week. That version of yourself getting in front of 5 companies per week, it might take you 6 months or a year, or if ever, to land a role. But that version of yourself that gets in front of 100 companies per week, you're literally going to land a role in a couple of weeks, max. Okay. When I was in between closing roles for other companies, I would never, ever have to wait more than 10 days. I don't think, looking back, I ever had to wait more than 10 days for a role. Because of the kind of volume I was doing, there's a quote from Alex Hormozy. I'm probably butchering it. This is not word for word, but he basically says, do so much volume that it would be unreasonable to think that you won't get the result, okay? Like, you're getting in front of that volume of companies. Again, it's just unreasonable to think that you won't land a role, okay? Volume goes at the top of the list for a reason, okay? Get in front of as many companies as possible. Now, to go through, I call this data sources, right? Because, like, let's say you want to get in front of, call it the mid scenario of 50 companies per week, right? But then you're like, well, Scott, where do I find these companies? Where do I even, how do I do it? Okay, well, here we go. So data sources. Number one is private networks, which is similar to like what we offer. I mean, yes, with us, you get access to our direct network, a done for you recruitment system, all the training, so many different recruitment systems and all that good stuff. But ultimately, the direct network, it is a private network. Okay. Now, the upside of a private network is speed. Okay. Again, many people that go out and try and do this by themselves, it will take them months, if not years, if ever, because a lot of people will give up, right? Whereas you go to a private network like us, and again, average timeline is 2 to 8 weeks. Okay, you're paying for speed, and paying I'll go into in a second, but also certainty as well. Again, if you're going out and doing this all by yourself, it's like you're sending out all these applications, nothing's coming back, and it's like you're kind of in this limbo of like, well, am I actually going to land a role? And again, that's where people often give up. But beyond that, the private network, you've got the assurance of vetted companies as well. So, for example, any company that we onboard, we do vetting for 3 different primary things, which is number one, lead flow, ensuring there's enough volume of inbound calls for the closer to take that they can reach their financial goals. The second one is that they've got a genuinely good product, right? They've got they're not scamming people, and they've got a genuinely good product that genuinely delivers on the outcome that they promise. And the nice thing about the AI space is that it's way, way, way less scammy than a lot of other traditional high ticket sales roles like courses and coaching programs, right? Because it's like what you're selling has genuine, tangible value proposition. I mentioned this example, I think, in my last video where I said that we work with a company who hire through us, and they sell custom AI agents, and they can save a company, depending on a lot of different variables, they can save a company anywhere from 100K to 1 million per year in payroll, and they charge 30K. So it's like, you pay me 30K, I'm going to save you, hypothetically, 500,000 per year. It's just very tangible value propositions. Okay, so again, a private network like us, you're coming into companies where like, okay, Scott and his team, they've done the vetting. I can just, I can go into the interview, I can go into the role knowing that, again, this company has been vetted. And also warm introductions as well. Right? It's like, you come through a sort of, a middleman, if you will, like us. And it's like, you're not just, it's not like, a role that you just apply for on Indeed, which has like 1,000 different applicants and they're burnt out from interviewing all these people. It's like, Scott has introduced me to this company. He spoke highly of me, or my recruiter, the recruiter that you get assigned when you join us, they've spoken to the company about me. This company's got some information about me. They're coming in warm, essentially, warm introductions. Again, you're paying for speed, certainty, vetted companies, and warm introductions. But the downside is that it's a paid investment, okay? And then that obviously, that comes down to a few different things, your level of financial resources and a lot of different variables that, let you know whether you can, pay for that private network. But if you can do it, if you can pay for the private network, 100% do it. And I'm not just saying that for me and that I make a sale as well. Like, it's not about that. It's really is about, the wealthier that you get, the more that you will realize that, cliche line that time is money. So what I mean by that is, let's very quickly break down the maths. Let's say that you earn right now around about 6K a month, right? Let's call it 5K a month for easy maths. But you can see why this would work, and you can see why selling for AI businesses would make you 20K per month, okay? So 5K a month now, but you could be at 20K a month. Well, that is a difference of 15K per month, okay? Now imagine this. You join a private network like ours, and you have the certainty of the speed of which you're going to land a role. Call it, let's even be conservative and go at the longer end of the spectrum of 8 weeks, right? Call it 2 months, okay? So in one scenario, you can have the certainty that you're going to be onboarding into a role within 2 months maximum, okay? Whereas doing this all by yourself, I'm going to be generous here and say that you're going to land a role in 6 months. The fact is, most people that go out and try to do this themselves won't land a role. But let's just say 6 months, okay? That means that private network, you land a role in 2 months. Doing it yourself, you land a role in 6 months, okay? That's a difference of 4 months. Now remember, there's a gap of 15K per month that you could be earning in AI. So 15,000 per month that you could be earning. And if it's going to take you 4 months longer to land a role, that is $60,000 that you pay by waiting. This is something that, again, I had to get accustomed to as I became sort of wealthier, for lack of a better word, is essentially this idea about, you really do have to be diligent with time. Time is money. Okay. There's a saying, again, I forget it off the exact words, but it's basically, long story short, it's that poor people look at the risk of doing something. Rich people look at the risk of not doing something. This is what we will call opportunity cost. And it really, really is true. The higher up I go in terms of my connections and meeting people that are very wealthy, the more I realize that they really do analyze the risk of not doing something just as much as the risk of doing something, okay? And again, private networks, you pay for that speed and it actually saves you money in the long run. So again, whether it's with us or not, I say if you have the financial resources to do it, trust me, just go through a private network, okay? You save all this hassle. You have speed, you have certainty and beyond. But let's say that for whatever reason, maybe you're watching this and a paid investment just isn't feasible for you right now. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Okay, you can still land a role, but you're going to have to get a little bit of creative. So the second data source that you can use to put in this volume and get in front of, ideally at least 50 companies per week, but bare minimum 25 per week, outbound. Okay, so think email and think LinkedIn, a little bit of Instagram as well. Now, the upside here is that once you do set it up, and I've given you guys on previous videos on my channel, literally a step-by-step outbound process that you can copy and that really, really does work. I promise you it works, okay? It is automated, but it does, it requires some setup time, okay? But once you've got it set up, okay, automated. This thing will run in the background. It will send out emails, LinkedIn messages to hiring decision makers at companies and funnel them through to an interview where, hopefully you perform well at the interview and you land the role. So it allows you ultimately to do a lot of volume, right? You set up this outbound process. You can, earlier on, I said the best case scenario is like getting in front of 100 companies per week. I mean, with a proper automated outbound process, you can do more like 100 per day. And again, going back to what we said earlier, do so much volume that it would be unreasonable for you to not land a role. Okay, you get in front of 100 companies per day, and as long as you've got some good messaging and you're coming across well, you just will land a role within a matter of weeks. Fact. Okay. But you have to get it right. You have to get the outbound process right. I go through on this channel in previous videos. I give you an exact outbound process to go and copy. So, do that information what you will, of course. Now, the downside is that it is time and consuming to set up. Okay. If you were to go and do this all by yourself from scratch with no prior knowledge on setting up outbound systems, it would take you a very, very long time. If you copy my step-by-step process that I give you in previous videos and you follow it to a T, it might take you 2, 3, 4 hours, okay? Not the end of the world. And then that thing is going to run in the background and ultimately get you in front of 50, 100 companies per day, and it really, really does work. Now, another downside is that you're reaching out to companies cold. Remember, with a private network, these companies have all been vetted. They've been vetted for lead flow, for price points, for, making sure they've got a good product, but you don't have that with outbound. You're just reaching out to companies cold, okay? They have no idea who you are. You're just randomly popping up with a message. And yeah, there's obviously can be hindrances that come with that. Now, thirdly is public job boards and websites. You see here I put upside? None. Zero. Okay, well, a lot of people think about, and especially people that aren't in the kind of like high ticket closing online world, when they think about landing a role, they think about, job boards like Indeed. But I cannot recommend enough, guys, just to not waste your time. Just go through a private network, ideally, if you could afford it, or set up a good outbound process. And I'll tell you the reason why. There is so much competition for these roles that are outposted on public job boards. Again, like Indeed, maybe even LinkedIn, Facebook groups. There is because that's where everybody is looking. There is so much insane competition. I was speaking with a company who are now recruiting through us. They were telling me that they put out a job advert on Indeed, right, for a sales hire. They got 600 applications, and 99% of them they said were garbage. That's why they ended up coming to us. They were like, I am sick of sifting through 600 applications where 99% are terrible. Let me just come to you. You've got the pre-trained, pre-vetted closers. Let me just have a closer off you. Cool, no problem. And that's the thing as well, guys. You will not see many of these roles advertised publicly for that exact reason. You've got to think about it from their perspective, from the hiring decision makers' perspective and the company's perspective. They are busy people. They're running big teams, big organizations. Do they have time to put out a job on LinkedIn and sift through, again, 500-600 applications? Most of them are terrible. Then you've got to do the interviewing, and no, they're going to go through a private network. Again, for the sake of saving time, saving energy, saving stress, and also getting a higher quality closer. Okay? Very, very important. So public job boards, in my humble opinion, has no upsides. Okay? Massive competition, and it's very, very time consuming. Okay? Very low conversions. Now, to land a great remote sales role in AI, and I'm talking about as quickly as possible to land the role and as high quality as possible, ideally you want a combination of both. Again, remember how important volume is. Ideally, you've got a private network that is landing you, inbound offers, done for your recruitment systems, companies are coming to you, but then you've also got an outbound process, running in the background, automated on autopilot, okay? Okay, with a good private network and a good outbound process, I promise you will land a role within weeks, okay, with a really good AI business where you can absolutely make that 10 to 40K a month income. I showed you guys on the last video, I showed you that guy, Nick, right? First week of selling AI. Bear in mind, he made 3K per month before. First week of selling AI, made 3K. His second week, he went on to do 3K commission in one day, okay? Did you see that opportunity cost there? Okay, he went from 3K a month to 3K per day, right? And it's like, imagine that he waited and didn't join our network and just decided to do it all himself. How much money? That would have cost him a lot of money. Again, remember, the wealthier you get and wealthy people look at the risk of not doing things as much as the risk of doing things. And so with all this being said, if you don't want to set up an outbound process, you don't want to send out manual applications on Indeed, LinkedIn, etc. If you just want to have this all done for you, okay, done for your recruitment systems, access to a vetted network, okay, then just click the link at the top of the description, schedule a call with myself or my team, and we'll take it from there. It could be the start of a very exciting journey for you. So far we've covered the first core principle of recruitment and landing a great role in this space, which is volume. The second one is personalization, okay? Because don't get me wrong, volume is good, okay? And volume alone can land you a good role, but volume and personalization is where you will see the best and quickest results, okay? So when I say personalization, I mean, for example, it's very common for closing roles that companies want to see a video of somebody before they decide who to interview. Because naturally, as closers, we're paid the big money for our communication ability, right? For our ability to communicate over Zoom. And so therefore, a lot of companies and a lot of hiring decision makers, what they're doing is they're trying to see, before they decide who to interview, they're trying to see how a candidate carries themselves, okay? How that candidate carries themselves visually, how they carry themselves audibly, in other words, how they speak. That's what they want to see. And so what I mean by that is I've seen so many closers that, a company will ask for a video, okay, as part of the application process. And that closer will just have one video that they send out to all these different companies. But it's like, actually, you will find much higher conversions by personalizing the video to the company. And what I mean by that is, and I've got a whole framework for how I do personalized Loom videos. If anybody wants it, just comment down below that you want the document. I'll send you a document. It's got instructions and a framework for scripting out a personal Loom video. But anyways, you will see much higher conversions. And it goes back to something that I said earlier as well. By doing these little things, is it going to upfront cost you more time? Yes, it's going to be more time consuming. However, it's actually going to save you time in the long run. Because if you send out general, video applications to every single company versus another parallel version of yourself where you send out personalized videos where in the first 5 seconds, you call out the company's name, okay? You maybe give a specific compliment about the business. If you do that and you do that personalization, yes, it's going to take you a little bit longer, okay? But you're going to land a role quicker. So again, it actually saves you time in the long run. So where possible, personalize things. Personalize the application, personalize a video that you might have to send, and again, it will save you time in the long run. Now, third and finally, this one is so overlooked and it's such a cheat code, okay? I really, really do mean that, okay? Follow-up. Very, very important. Now, this guy Jackson, who again is one of the most well-connected recruiters in the space, is why I wanted to buy his recruitment system for our clients to have access to. He obviously has so much data from all of these different companies that he works with, all these different closers he works with. And he was saying that from his data, what he sees, and this corresponds with what other companies are saying as well, only 3 to 5% of applicants will actually follow up about their application. So think about this. So again, remember, this is a cheat code. That means that if you follow up at all, okay, you instantly put yourself in the top percentiles, the top 3 to 5%, just by sending a quick follow-up message will take you, 30 seconds to craft a quick follow-up, a one-liner, send it on LinkedIn or Insta or email or whatever it might be, just a quick follow-up about your application. And it's such a cheat code. It's such an amazing cheat code. Now to illustrate some practical proof of this, right, I want to walk you through my story about landing my closing role with Charlie Morgan. Now, a lot of you guys will know who Charlie Morgan is, right? He's got a very kind of popular brand, a big brand. He's very well respected in the kind of online space, right? And I knew that I wanted to close for Charlie's company specifically. So what I did was I reached out to him with an initial Loom video about, what I can offer, the current metrics I was hitting, XYZ, really delivering my communication with good certainty, articulating myself well. I sent that and I didn't hear anything. Like the majority of applications that, in all honesty, you'll put out there and you won't hear nothing back. But I followed it up, okay? So 2 days later, I followed up on my application, okay, sent them a message, blah, blah, blah. Again, just a quick 1-2 liner. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. It took me about 30 seconds. It was to that follow-up that they responded, okay? And ultimately, one thing led to another, and I ended up landing the role. And that closing role at Charlie Morgan's company, Imperium, it ended up changing my life without meaning to sound too dramatic. In life, we look back at these little moments and these little things that happen that ultimately changed the trajectory of where we went. And if I didn't have that closing role with Charlie Morgan and do some great numbers at that company, I might not be sitting here speaking with you today. You wouldn't be listening to me today. I wouldn't have this thriving business. All because I sent a follow-up. So insane. Again, such a cheat code. There's another example that I often give a client of ours. Same thing, okay? Same thing. He was relentless with all of these core principles, doing a lot of volume, a lot of personalization. Again, with our network, because it's done for you recruitment, it's not time consuming for the client. So therefore, they can focus on other recruitment systems and just go at it, while our recruitment team is handling everything on our side in terms of our network. But anyways, he followed these core principles to a T, right? Did the volume, did the personalization, did the follow-up as well. I mean, this guy, he would go out and there's a company that he really wanted to close for. What he would do is he would find out the founder's name. He would find that founder's personal Instagram, and it's a true story. And he directly messaged the founder about his application and ended up getting the offer. Okay. He actually had like 5 offers. Okay. He was in the recruitment process for 2 weeks. Now, this is a guy, by the way, who did have a lot of sales experience, but no closing experience. Okay. Within 2 weeks, he had I think it was 10 interviews, 5 different offers, and 5 different offers from brilliant companies as well. All of them being companies that even experienced and seasoned closers would really, really want. Okay, he outcompeted experienced closers because he followed these core principles. Okay, now think about this. Put yourself in a founder's shoes or a sales manager's shoes, whoever's making the decision about hiring a closer. Think about the first principles. What does that hiring decision maker want? Okay, they want somebody primarily who's going to come in, who's going to close deals and collect a lot of cash, generate a lot of revenue. Everything else is secondary to that, okay? Now imagine that you've got 2 different applicants. One applicant just sends their application and that's that. Another applicant sends their application and then 2 days later you get a follow-up message from them, maybe via email, say. And then another day later or 2 days later, they follow up with you again, another message on LinkedIn. It's like, that is showing traits of somebody that is going to be proactive and that's ultimately going to close deals and collect cash, which is all they're looking at, okay? The nice thing about this space, as opposed to maybe traditional 9-to-5 employment roles, is that it's a level playing field in some sense. There are many industries which are gate kept by the fact that you have to have experience. But trust me, I can tell you this from experience. Founders only care about if you can close deals and collect cash. So what that means is, if they've interviewed one closer who's got a lot of experience, but they seem kind of jaded, kind of low energy, they're not exciting and charismatic, and then they've got another person with far less experience, but they carry themselves better, they show traits of somebody that's going to close a lot of deals for them, they will go for the one with less experience, okay? It's the beautiful thing. This is a results-based game, okay? Who's going to collect the most deals? Who's going to close the most deals and collect the most cash? That is what it's about, okay? Now, there's a little bit of a bonus principle here. So we've been through the 3 core principles, okay, which is volume, personalization, and follow-up, okay? Now, fourth and finally, this is a bit of a bonus principle here, but I want to talk about speed. This is not so much, talked about often in the kind of close of recruitment game. Now, there's a common term in business that is called speed to lead. And the concept is that the quicker that you reach out to a lead after a lead submits their details, the higher the response rate will be, and therefore the higher the close rate will be. Absolutely true. Okay. So let's say that, a lead, fills out an opt-in form, and then the setter gets to them within 5 minutes. And in another parallel version, the setter reaches out to them after 2 hours. Okay, basic logic. The quicker you get to them in a marketing context, the quicker you get to the lead, okay, the higher your conversions will be. But the thing is, recruitment is sales. It really, really is. Recruitment is a recruitment process. It's absolutely a sales process. It's just that in a recruitment process, you are the product. You're selling yourself. As weird as that probably sounds. And so the idea is that the quicker that you can get in front of a company who have recently posted an active closing role, the higher your conversions will be, the more likely you will be to land the interview and therefore land the role, okay? Again, imagine 2 parallel versions. In one parallel version, a closing role is posted with a great AI company, but it's been 2 weeks since they posted it. In another parallel version, it's been 2 hours since they posted it. The longer that role has been posted, the less chance you have. That is a fact. You think about it, by that point, if it's been, 1 or 2 weeks, the company might have already made up their mind, or at the very least, they've got a good idea about who they're going to pick. They're kind of done with interviews. They're a little bit jaded with them. The quicker that you apply to a role after it's posted, the better results that you will get. Okay. So guys, to clarify, you need volume, you need personalization, you need follow-up, and ideally get in front of the company, speed to lead, get your application in as quickly as possible from the time of it being posted, okay? In terms of where to get in front of these companies, like we've just discussed, private networks is absolutely the way forward. That will get you speed, it will get you certainty, it will get you vetted companies and warm introductions, but of course it is a paid investment. And then the next best option is outbound. Outbound really does work, but you need to have a good dialed in process, okay? It is a little bit time consuming to set up, but again, it does work. And we've spoken about my hatred for public job boards, just because I know how much time it's going to waste. So anyways, guys, I hope that helps. Go check out some other videos on my channel. And again, I give you guys outbound processes. And again, if you just want us to do this all for you, if you want us to take the time, energy, and stress out of landing a great role in the AI sales space, then just click the link at the top of the description, schedule a call with myself and my team, and we'll walk you through everything in detail. Again, could be the start of an exciting journey. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.